This story sounds impossible, but every detail you're about to hear is true. It happened quietly, in a place everyone thought was normal, and for years, nobody noticed the warning signs, even though they were right in front of them. Today we're going to walk through what really happened, step by step. Because once you hear the full story, you'll never look at this place the same way again. It was 6 a.m. on July 22, 1989, in Cleveland, Ohio. The east side of the city was still quiet, barely waking, waiting for the first light of the day. Meanwhile, a young woman was only now heading back toward the motel where she stayed with her boyfriend. The night had dragged on, the clients had been difficult, and she was exhausted down to her bones. Her name was Malvette, and sex work was the only way she had found to make enough money before her baby arrived. But sleep wasn't coming yet. As she stepped onto the motel parking lot, 2 cars immediately caught her eye. Suspicious, wrong, out of place. She knew the street world too well. She lived in it every day, and she instantly recognized undercover police. And she had a pretty good idea why they were there. Her boyfriend dealt drugs. To her, it was obvious a bust was about to happen. Trying not to draw attention, she parked normally, acted like everything was fine, and walked away from the lot with no real destination. She just needed to stay far from anything that could drag her into trouble. As she put distance between herself and the motel, tension built in her chest. She hoped the officers wouldn't call her back or follow her. Then she felt someone behind her, a presence, a man, and not a cop. She didn't know him personally, but she had already seen him around the area. He looked to be in his 20s. He introduced himself as Anthony, saying he lived just down the street. He'd noticed she seemed uneasy and offered to let her come wait at his place, make a phone call, or just stay out of sight until things settled down. Malvette hesitated, but she had nowhere else to go and no energy left. So she accepted his offer, and the two walked toward his house. She hesitates at first, but quickly realizes she has nowhere else to go. And after the night she just had, she's completely drained. So she agrees to follow Anthony, and the two head toward his place at 1878 Page Avenue. When she steps inside, she keeps her guard up. Better to stay careful. But as the door opens, she notices Anthony's sister, asleep on the couch downstairs. Toys are scattered across the floor, proof that children live there. The house looks like a place where she might safely rest for a little while. Anthony leads her to one of the bedrooms and quietly asks her not to make any noise, so his sister won't wake. Once they reach the upper floor, Malvette enters the room with Anthony right behind her. She's only taken a few steps when she turns and sees him locking the door, then dragging a heavy suitcase in front of it like a barricade. In that instant, she realizes he isn't the helpful stranger he pretended to be. His intentions are dark. She thinks for a moment about yelling, but abandons the idea. The second Anthony reveals a massive knife. He calmly walks to the window, shuts it tight, then tells her to sit on the bed. She knows exactly what he has in mind. Terror rises in her throat, but to survive and to protect the child she's carrying, she follows his orders. He forces her to undress. He grabs a cloth, rolls it into a wad, and stuffs it inside her mouth. Then the assault begins. Afterward, he keeps mumbling apologies as if he felt remorse. But what just happened in that room will repeat itself again and again over the next 15 hours. The nightmare is only beginning. Malvette is beyond exhausted. She's starving too. Her stomach growls loudly, and Anthony hears it. He responds with chilling words. "You should pray, because I'm gonna feed you, and then kill you. But first, I need to sleep." He binds her wrists and ankles with belts and neckties. Then he lies down beside her on the bed and drifts off. Malvette, of course, refuses to sleep. She listens carefully to his breathing, waiting for the moment it becomes deep and steady. If she's going to try something, it has to be now. If he wakes first, she's dead. She carefully slides off the bed, moving as slowly as she can so the mattress won't shift and wake him. She has two options: the door, but it's locked, and the heavy suitcase jammed in front of it would make too much noise. There's no chance she could move it without waking him, or the window, but Anthony locked it, and Malvette's hands are tied behind her back, so she uses the only thing she can, her head, literally. She presses her forehead under the frame and tries to push it upward. It's nearly impossible. Every failed attempt comes with a terrifying reminder: the huge knife lying right next to him on the bed. If he wakes up, it's over. But somehow, against all odds, the window slides open. She looks down. The fall is high, but staying in that room means certain death. Nothing to think about. She jumps. The impact is brutal. But with adrenaline flooding her body, she doesn't feel the pain. She immediately scrambles to her feet and runs toward two women standing near a car. She can't shout for help. The gag is still forced deep in her mouth, so they stare at her in confusion. She turns around and shows them her tied wrists. Only then do they understand. They yell for someone to call the police and rush to help her. Upstairs, Anthony is still asleep. He only realizes she escaped when officers break down the bedroom door and wake him. He's arrested for kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, and rape. Anyone would assume he'd stay locked up after what he did. But no, he posts bail. He walks free. Amazingly, almost unbelievably, despite the severity of his crimes, he pays the required bail and is released, free to go about his life again. A few months later, scheduled for a court hearing in the fall of 1989, he simply doesn't show up. Predictably, a warrant is issued for his arrest on December 8th, but because of administrative delays, and perhaps a lack of urgency regarding Malvette Stockwell's case, nothing happens. Nobody goes looking for him, even though Anthony didn't flee Cleveland. He stayed in the exact same house where he assaulted a pregnant woman. He was right there, untouched, unnoticed. And that failure from authorities would come with devastating consequences. Months pass, and now it's June 24th, 1990. Anthony brings a 31-year-old woman into his home like Malvette. She is pregnant, 5 months along, and just like Malvette, she's attacked in almost the same way. Only this time, he's even more sadistic. He forces her to say she enjoys what he's doing, demanding she call him Sir, feeding his need for total domination. After long, unbearable hours. She lies beside him, and just like Malvette, she manages to escape. The police are called again. Anthony is arrested again. But this woman doesn't file a complaint. She's traumatized. For her, the only thing that matters is that the monster is finally locked up. In her mind, that alone is enough. At least he can't touch anyone else while sitting in a cell. And this time he shouldn't be walking out again. His previous stunt, skipping a court appearance, had already convinced the judge to shut the door on any future bail. He had blown his last chance. Even without her filing a complaint, the legal system isn't done with him. The first case, the assault on Malvette Stockwell, is still active. It's moving forward whether he wants it or not. Anthony is now forced to stand before the court and answer for what he did. Before the trial began, an agreement was reached between the parties. The accusations of kidnapping and unlawful imprisonment were set aside, leaving only the charge of rape, provided that Anthony agreed to plead guilty. He accepted those terms on September 12, 1990. Shortly after, the judge delivered the sentence: 15 years in prison. It was the official start of Anthony Sowell's long and complicated story. Anthony was born on August 19, 1959, to Thomas Sowell and Claudia Garrison. His father worked in construction, but was seldom home, often away, and consumed by heavy drinking. His mother, who worked in a dry cleaning shop, carried the weight of the household largely on her own. The family environment was already difficult, but it became even more overwhelming after a tragedy. One of Claudia's daughters, Patricia, passed away in her 20s from a pulmonary embolism, leaving behind 7 young children. Claudia took all of them in, filling the house with even more responsibilities and stress. She kept strict discipline inside the home, sometimes in harsh ways. When she felt a child had crossed a line, she imposed severe punishments, and the atmosphere in the house became tense, structured around rules, silence, and fear of crossing boundaries. There were no celebrations, no birthdays, no Christmas gatherings, no friends allowed in the home. Family life existed behind closed doors. One person, however, received different treatment: Anthony. He wasn't subjected to the same disciplinary measures as the others. He observed more than he intervened, often remaining in the background, quiet and withdrawn. At school, he behaved calmly and interacted normally with classmates, though he struggled to maintain long-term friendships due to the family's frequent moves. His grades were unremarkable, not particularly high, not particularly low, but adolescence brought a turning point. Living in such an intense household environment shaped his behaviors in troubling ways. He became increasingly fascinated by dynamics he didn't fully understand, misinterpreting situations, and developing impulses he couldn't manage. Eventually, he crossed boundaries with a young girl living in the home, Leona, who was only 12 years old, a moment that marked a clear shift in his path. Around the same time, his performance at school declined sharply. He lost motivation, interest, and direction. By spring of 1977, Anthony left school and enlisted in the U.S. military, seeking structure and stability elsewhere. After joining the military, Anthony began working as a cook before training as an electrician. His service took him across the United States and eventually overseas, to Okinawa, Japan. It was there that he met Kim Lawson, another American soldier. The two grew close and eventually married. For many who knew him, the marriage was unexpected. Before meeting Kim, Anthony spent much of his free time going out to bars and strip clubs, often paying for encounters marked by troubling behavior. But with Kim, he settled into something resembling stability. Their marriage lasted throughout his 8-year military career until he returned to civilian life in 1985. However, once back home, Anthony's long-standing struggle with alcohol intensified. He and Kim soon divorced. With few resources and no direction, he moved back into the attic of his childhood home on Page Avenue. He had no steady job, financial problems, and growing dependency issues. He began drinking heavily and using drugs, eventually dealing them as well. His lifestyle deteriorated rapidly, placing him on a path that would lead, in 1989, to the violent attack on Malvette Stockwell, and then to a 15-year prison sentence. Anthony entered prison on September 12, 1990. Despite the serious nature of his crimes, he wasn't a disruptive inmate. In fact, he often complied with rules and earned the trust of guards and staff. His time in the military had taught him rigid respect for authority, a trait that worked in his favor inside prison. He was allowed certain privileges and took part in programs aimed at helping him manage alcoholism. But when it came to addressing deeper behavioral issues, especially those tied to his sexual violence, he refused to participate. He briefly enrolled in a treatment program, but withdrew almost immediately. The process required offenders to acknowledge their actions openly, something Anthony refused to do. Instead, he chose to complete the full length of his sentence rather than undergo therapy. Following a later evaluation that rated his likelihood of reoffending as low, he was released at the end of his prison term. It was June 20th, 2005. He was 45 years old. Once freed, Anthony moved into a large, aging white house at 12,205 Imperial Avenue in Cleveland's East Side. At first, he gave the impression that he was trying to rebuild his life. He registered as required on the local sex offender list. He found a modest job, enough to maintain some stability. He even began a new relationship with Lori Frazier, whom he met in a bar. She was drawn to him, and before long, she had moved into his home. Lori, notably, was the niece of Cleveland's mayor, Frank Jackson. For a short time, life appeared to be settling into something steady, but their relationship had a hidden core: drugs. Lori struggled with addiction, particularly to crack cocaine, and Anthony made sure she always had access to it. This gave the relationship an unhealthy foundation, even though strong feelings existed between them. They talked about a future together. Marriage even came up. But over time, Anthony began using the same substances he supplied to Lori. Her admiration for him faded as she realized they were no longer balancing each other. They were sinking together. Eventually, Lori was arrested and sent to jail for drug-related charges. When she was released in 2006, she went straight to her dealer, who casually mentioned that Anthony had continued buying from him the entire time she was incarcerated. This deeply upset her, not because he contacted her dealer, but because he had begun consuming the drugs himself. She wanted a partner who would take care of her while she dealt with her own issues, not someone who fell into addiction alongside her. Although she didn't leave immediately, the relationship deteriorated quickly. Anthony became volatile when under the influence, and the home they shared became unstable. He eventually forced Lori out of the house. From there, he spiraled further. His appearance changed drastically. He lost weight, grew sickly, and could no longer maintain work. By 2007, to support himself, he began stealing metal, especially copper, from abandoned buildings and construction sites. He continued selling drugs as well. In 2007 would mark the beginning of the darkest chapter on Imperial Avenue. Crystal Dozier, 38 years old and mother of 7, had lived a life marked by hardship long before she crossed paths with Anthony Sowell. She never knew her father. He passed away when she was very young. Her mother struggled constantly with money, and eventually the family lost their home. Crystal grew up surrounded by instability and insecurity, always trying to find her place. As an adult, she fell into crack addiction, a destructive cycle that gripped countless people in her community. Crystal tried many times to pull herself out, to get clean, to rebuild her life, but every attempt ended in relapse. In May 2007, she was in another relapse phase. She was staying with a friend on Imperial Avenue, an area known for drug activity and abandoned houses where users gathered. This is where she encountered Anthony Sowell. She went with him, and she never came back. What happened in that house ended her life. Crystal became the first victim of a man whose violence was only beginning. Anthony attempted to hide what he had done. He wrapped her remains, waited until nightfall, and buried her in a shallow spot in the yard. To prevent anyone or anything from discovering it, he placed a heavy slab over the burial site before covering it with soil. This was his first killing. Days passed. Crystal's absence began to worry her family, though they were sadly used to her disappearing during difficult periods. But this time felt different. They reported her missing to the police, hoping for help. Instead, officers barely investigated. To them, she was an adult with a troubled past, someone who might have chosen to leave. But her family refused to quit. They printed flyers, searched neighborhoods, questioned locals, and covered as much ground as they could. Eventually, they traced Crystal's last known location to Imperial Avenue, but the trail ended there. A month later, people in the neighborhood began complaining about a foul smell, something like rotting meat. It was so strong that the city's health department sent inspectors. They never discovered the source. The smell came from beneath the dirt in Anthony Sowell's yard. After a while, residents simply learned to live with it. For a time, Crystal's death quieted Anthony, but the effect it had on him, the sense of control, the thrill, the darkness he had unleashed, acted like an addictive force inside him. As the months passed, that feeling resurfaced, and when it did, he acted again. By June 2008, more than a year after Crystal's disappearance, another woman crossed his path. Tashana Culver, 31, had also endured a turbulent life. After high school, the boyfriend she loved deeply took his own life, sending her into depression. She struggled to cope and eventually turned to crack, the same destructive spiral Crystal had battled. Despite everything, she had 5 children, but the instability around her made life difficult for them. On Imperial Avenue, she encountered Anthony Sowell. He took her life as well. This time, instead of burying the body outside, he hid it in the crawl space beneath his house, hoping a different method would go unnoticed. But Cleveland summers are unforgiving. The heat amplified the smell, and once again, the entire street felt the stench of decay. Anthony didn't stop. Only 2 months later, in August 2008, another young mother, 25-year-old Lashana Long, ended up on Imperial Avenue. Like many of his victims, she was battling addiction. Crack had cost her the custody of her 3 children, and she was trying to navigate a life full of mistakes and regrets. She met Anthony, and like the others, she vanished. Her family reported her missing when she failed to call her father on his birthday, something she had never forgotten once in her life. They would never hear from her again. She was killed the same way as the others, restrained, overpowered, and unable to escape. But this time, Anthony faced another problem. The bodies were accumulating. The yard attracted attention. The crawl space reeked. The house itself smelled of death. So with Lashana, he chose a new, darker method. He separated the remains into pieces. Some parts were discarded, others were hidden. And one part, the skull, he kept, stored in a plastic bucket in his basement, not out of necessity, but as a reminder. Like many serial offenders before him, he was beginning to keep trophies. Even after Lori ended their relationship, she continued visiting Anthony from time to time, and every time she stepped inside, the same thing hit her. The smell. It was heavy, sour, lingering. Anthony always gave the same excuse. It's the sausage factory down the street. But Lori wasn't naive. She knew something didn't add up. Anthony had fresh injuries almost every time she saw him. Deep scratches, cuts, marks he couldn't hide. Sometimes there was blood on the wall, on the floor, even on pieces of furniture. Whenever she asked, he had a story ready. He'd been attacked while stealing copper. Someone had tried to break in. He'd had to defend himself. And Lori let it go. She didn't want answers. She only wanted her dose. Meanwhile, 3 lifeless bodies were already inside the house. By October 2008, Anthony Sowell had crossed a threshold. He wasn't just a man who killed when the opportunity came. He had become a hunter. Before he waited for chance. Now he created opportunity. He deliberately approached women carrying the same vulnerabilities. Lives marked by hardship, addiction, marginalization, prostitution, isolation. Women who could disappear without triggering immediate alarm. He knew they were easy to lure. One free hit of crack was often enough. That's how Michelle Mason, 45, and Tanya Carmichael, 53, stepped into his home, both mothers, both addicts, both fighting their own battles, long before they ever met him. Michelle vanished first, in October 2008. Tanya followed a month later. Inside that house, both women endured the same nightmare. They were restrained with electrical cords, overpowered and slowly strangled, Sowell drawing out their final moments more and more each time, as if the violence itself had become a ritual. He no longer bothered with the gruesome methods he'd used before. Instead, he wrapped each woman in plastic, then in blankets, and buried them in shallow graves in his yard, just deep enough to hide them from sight. Eventually, their families reported them missing. But once again, the same pattern repeated. Police interest was minimal. Their histories worked against them. Officers dismissed them as unreliable transient, drug users. Had authorities simply compared the cases, they would have noticed an obvious link. Every disappearance pointed to the same street, Imperial Avenue. One visit would have revealed everything. One walk past Anthony Sowell's yard would have exposed the truth. The smell alone was a trail, but bias blinded them. And that failure delivered the next woman straight into the killer's hands. Gladys Wade. It was the end of 2008, December. Gladys, in her 40s, stepped out of a small corner store on Imperial Avenue with a beer in hand. She walked toward home when a man on a porch called out to her, inviting her for a drink. She politely declined and kept walking. She didn't make it far. A fist struck her face out of nowhere. Before she could react, hands wrapped around her throat, cutting off her air. Her attacker, Anthony Sowell, dragged her unconscious body inside his house and carried her upstairs. When she woke up, she was alone in a strange room. Barely aware of what was happening, she tried to move, but Anthony stormed in, hitting her repeatedly. He ordered her to undress, but Gladys refused. Unlike his previous victims who submitted in hopes of surviving, she fought back, hard. She struck him with everything she had, landing blows, kicking, aiming for sensitive spots. Her resistance stunned him, just long enough for her to break free. She bolted toward the stairs, screaming with every breath, hoping someone would hear. Anthony roared behind her, "Scream all you want, you're not leaving." It was pure terror. He lunged after her. They collided, tumbling down the staircase together. At the bottom, bruised and dazed, Gladys forced herself up. She ran toward a window, smashed it with her arm, cutting her hand deeply. But she didn't stop. She grabbed a shard of glass, ready to defend herself. Her survival now depended on seconds. Anthony lunges at her again, forcing her to the floor, sitting on her waist, both hands crushing her throat. Gladys swings the shard of glass with everything she has left, carving deep gashes across his face. Blood pours down his cheeks, dripping onto her. But he doesn't flinch. He doesn't slow down. It's like the pain doesn't reach him, like adrenaline has turned him into something unresponsive, mechanical, unstoppable, running out of options. Gladys goes for the only move that worked before. She brings her knee up sharply, striking him right in the groin. He grunts, the first sign of weakness, and his grip finally loosens. Gladys takes the opportunity. She scrambles to her feet and runs, barefoot, bleeding everywhere, barely conscious, down Imperial Avenue. She crashes into a nearby pizzeria, begging for help, leaving a trail of blood behind her. The employees panic, but not for the right reason. They don't want a bleeding woman collapsing on their floor. They push her back outside. But fate is on her side. A patrol car happens to drive by. Officers stop, pull over, and help her. They get her to the hospital, then to the station to record her statement. Police are sent immediately to Anthony's house. And there he is, not hiding, not running, standing in the middle of a room covered in blood, with a broken window, overturned furniture, all the signs of a violent attack. Any reasonable investigator would have done the obvious: arrest Anthony, charge him with attempted murder, search the home properly, uncover bodies, end the killings for good. None of that happens. Instead, the prosecutor dismisses the entire case. He says Gladys Wade is not reliable. He says her addiction makes her not credible. He says there isn't enough evidence, despite the blood, the wounds, the broken window, and the horrific odor seeping from inside the house. And just like that, they let him go. They release a serial killer back into his hunting ground, and like every predator who escapes justice, he returns to killing. In January and again in April. April 2009, 2 more women vanish. Kim Smith, 44, Imelda Hunter, 47. Both mothers, both fighting addictions, both close to their families, both trusted Anthony enough to follow him home. Both lose their lives inside that house, and both are hidden in the yard among the growing number of bodies no one is looking for. Only a few days after killing Imelda, on April 21st, 2009, another neighbor stops by. Tanya Doss, 43. Anthony had mentioned a barbecue. No one else went. The smell around his home kept people far away, but Tanya has known Anthony for years. She trusts him. The evening starts normally. Food, drinks, casual conversation. Nothing alarming. Then something shifts in Anthony's expression. A sudden, violent switch. Without warning, he grabs her, throws her to the floor, and presses his hands around her throat. His eyes go dark, empty, consumed by something feral. "If you want to live," he growls, "hit the floor 3 times. Tanya, terrified, taps the floor. He releases her. "You don't know me," he hisses. "I could kill you." He paces, rants, insults her. His mood swings violently from rage to calm. He slaps her, orders her to take her clothes off. She obeys, trying to stay alive, and asks if she can use the bathroom. For some reason, he agrees. When she comes back, he's lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling, expression blank, like the storm inside him suddenly died. Tanya understands one thing. If she moves wrong, she dies. She lies down next to him, pretending to relax. She spends the entire night trapped in the house of a man who nearly killed her. In the morning, he acts like nothing happened. He even offers her a beer at 9 in the morning. She plays along. She pretends to get a phone call from her daughter. She tells him she needs to go, and he lets her walk out. The moment she gets home, she promises herself she will never set foot in that place again. She doesn't call the police. She's convinced they won't listen, won't believe her, won't act. But she tells her closest friend, Nancy Cobbs, 43. Nancy shakes her head. She refuses to believe it. In her mind, Anthony is odd, sure, but harmless. She tells herself, Tanya must have been high, must have imagined. A few days later, April 24th, 2009, Nancy Cobbs walks into Anthony's house. She doesn't walk back out. Nancy becomes his 8th victim. He assaults her, strangles her, and then wraps her body in layers of blankets and garbage bags before dragging her into the crawl space beneath the house, leaving her there in the darkness with the others. Then comes summer, and with the heat, the smell becomes unavoidable. The stench grows thicker, heavier, almost physical. A suffocating wave of rot that spreads across Imperial Avenue. It gets so overwhelming that the sausage factory next door assumes they must be responsible for the odor. They spend thousands of dollars upgrading their ventilation system, replacing ducts, adding new filters. But nothing changes because the smell isn't coming from the factory. It's coming from Anthony Sowell's house. And he's nowhere near finished. Between June 2009, he kills 3 more women. Talacia Fortson, 31, Janice Webb, 3141, Diane Turner, 38, all of them mothers, all of them vulnerable, all of them strangled in the same house, the same rooms, the same ritual of violence he'd perfected over the years. But something inside Anthony shifts with these murders. He becomes reckless. He stops burying them. Some bodies are left in the attic, others in upstairs rooms, some literally lying on the bedroom floor. He doesn't hide anything anymore. And why would he? The truth is brutal. No one is stopping him. No one is even trying. Despite the constant disappearances, the complaints about the smell, the warning signs everywhere, nobody comes to knock on his door. Then, on September 22, 2009, everything escalates. Latundra Billups, 37, someone who has known Anthony for years, comes over like she has many times before, hoping to get crack. Normally they stay upstairs, but with bodies rotting in the top rooms, Anthony leads her into a lower-level bedroom instead. He acts normal at first, friendly, relaxed. Then, without warning, he places his hands around her neck and squeezes. Not enough to kill her instantly, just enough to make her panic. She shoves him off. And that tiny act of resistance makes something snap inside him. He explodes with rage. He beats her brutally, tears her clothes, throws her to the floor, then grabs an electrical cable, loops it around her neck and pulls until she blacks out. When she regains consciousness, her throat feels like it's on fire. The cable tore at her skin as she fought for air. She opens her eyes and sees Anthony sitting calmly in a chair right in front of her, watching her, barely blinking, like he can't understand how she's still alive. Then he speaks. "I'm going to kill you, and then kill myself. They're going to send me to prison soon." Latundra realizes she has one chance, not to run, but to talk. So she does the only thing she can. She tries to calm him down. She tells him he won't go to prison. She tells him she forgives him. She tells him he just needs to breathe. And somehow, unbelievably, something in him softens. He stands up, helps her to her feet, walks her to the door, and lets her leave. Latundra walks as normally as she can until she clears the corner of the street. Then she sprints, barefoot, injured, terrified. She runs straight to the hospital to document her injuries, then directly to the police to file a report. And the police tell her the same thing they told every woman before her: "We'll get back to you." 3 weeks pass. 3 weeks before they call her again. 3 weeks before they say they finally have enough to arrest Anthony Sowell. But 3 weeks is more than enough time for him to kill again. During that entire month of police inaction, Another woman walks straight into the nightmare. On October 19th, 2009, her name is Shawn Morris, 51. She shows up because Anthony offers her free crack. At first, it feels like any other casual visit. They smoke, they talk, everything seems calm. When Shawn decides it's time to go, Anthony even walks her toward the door. She's seconds away from safety. Then she remembers she forgot her ID inside. Shawn turns back, knocks again, and the man who opens the door isn't the one she left moments earlier. His face has changed. He lunges at her, grabs her by the throat, and drags her inside, whispering in her ear with terrifying certainty. "You're not leaving. You're not going anywhere unless I say so. If you run or scream, I'll kill you." He pulls her down the stairs, forces her onto the floor, and assaults her while she screams in pain. Afraid that neighbors might hear, he rushes downstairs to turn the music up. And in that short window, naked, injured, terrified, Shawn makes the only decision that might save her life. She runs to the window. She knows she won't survive long if she stays. She knows the fall might kill her, but staying inside guarantees it. So she jumps. The impact is catastrophic. Both wrists snap. 8 ribs crack. Her skull fractures. But she's alive. A worker from a nearby restaurant sees the naked woman fall and runs toward her. Before he reaches her, Anthony bursts out of the house, shirtless, covered in sweat, shouting, "Don't worry, I'll take care of her. She's my wife. She just fell. No need to call anyone. I already called an ambulance." He hadn't called anyone. Thankfully, the employee ignores him and calls emergency services. Shawn survives, but she doesn't file charges. She's married, and she can't face the consequences of explaining why she was naked inside another man's house. But for once, it no longer depends on the victim pressing charges. Police finally start moving. Latundra's report from 3 weeks earlier, the one officers had ignored, is suddenly considered again. Investigators realize they might actually have enough to file an arrest warrant. So on October 29th, 2009, officers head to Anthony's house. They knock. No answer. They break in. What they find hits them instantly. The smell. The same smell residents had been complaining about for years. The one everyone blamed on the sausage factory. Now it has a source. For the first time, police take a serious look around. They walk upstairs and freeze. 2 decomposing bodies lie inside a room. A deeper search reveals 4 more inside the house. Then they go outside, dig into the yard, and uncover 11 human bodies in total, women whose families searched for them for years. Women police dismissed as drug users who likely wandered off. Women whose deaths could have been prevented. And while this horror unravels, Anthony is gone. October 29th, 2009. The news spreads like fire across Cleveland. Imperial Avenue fills with reporters, detectives, horrified neighbors. But Anthony isn't hiding across the country or fleeing to another state. He's just a few streets away, inside his nephew's house, casually playing video games, calm, almost peaceful, like a man who knows the ending is already written. A neighbor, Debbie Madison, refuses to wait for police to track him down. She finds him herself, looks him straight in the eyes, and tells him the truth. They found bodies. The police are at your house. You need to go talk to them." And strangely, Anthony agrees. He follows her down the street, step by step, walking toward the flashing lights like a condemned man, heading to his own execution. As they walk, Anthony starts talking, quietly, almost like he's confessing to avoid bursting apart. He says he didn't want to hurt anyone. He says something inside him takes over. He says he loses control. Debbie listens, horrified, as police lights glow brighter at the end of the block. But when Anthony finally sees the crowd of officers, the yellow tape, the flashing blue and red, he stops. He freezes. And then he tells Debbie he wants to go to his sister's house first for reasons even she doesn't understand. She follows him. Inside his sister's home, Anthony breaks. He tells her everything is true, that the police found the bodies, that he killed those women, that he doesn't know why he does it, that he's sorry, that he loves her. And then he says he has to leave because they're coming for him. He had been seconds away from surrendering. Then he slips out of the house and vanishes again. 2 days pass. It's now October 31st, 2009, Halloween. Cleveland is terrified. Police are hunting a serial killer in real time. Neighborhoods are locked down. Parents keep kids inside. And still, no sign of Anthony Sowell. Finally, someone spots him wandering a few streets away. Police swarm the area instantly. Patrol cars block intersections. Officers sprint through alleyways, search abandoned homes, empty lots, anywhere a man could hide. They comb through Imperial Avenue inch by inch, house by house. The last place they check is a vacant, decaying home, one of dozens scattered through the neighborhood. Inside that collapsing shell, they find him. Anthony Sowell is crouched in the shadows, exhausted, cornered, and out of places to run. This time, there is no slipping away, no talking his way out, no disappearing into the cracks of Cleveland. He is arrested on the spot. At the station, detectives interrogate him for 8 hours straight. But Anthony refuses to give them anything. He denies, deflects, claims he only dreamed the murders, that his memories come from nightmares. He never confesses. It doesn't matter. They have everything they need. 11 bodies, DNA, witnesses, survivors who lived through hell and escaped. The horror documented in every corner of his house. The case moves fast. On June 27th, 2011, Anthony Sowell goes on trial. He faces 85 charges: kidnapping, rape, attempted murder, and aggravated murder. He pleads not guilty, using mental instability as his shield. The trial becomes one of the darkest in Cleveland's history. Families testify, survivors testify. Every detail is worse than the last, the kind of testimony that crushes a courtroom into silence. Then investigators reveal something even more chilling. The stench coming from the house, the smell neighbors had complained about for years, didn't start in 2007. It started in 2005. 2 years before the first murder, the police recognize, meaning there may be victims no one ever found. On August 10th, 2011, After 15 hours of deliberation, the jury announces their verdict. Anthony Sowell is guilty on 84 of the 85 charges. The judge sentences him to death. But justice doesn't come from a courtroom needle. On February 8, 2021, Anthony Sowell dies of an incurable illness inside prison walls, years before his execution date ever arrives. Not long after, the infamous house on Imperial Avenue is demolished. In its place now stands a memorial garden, the Garden of the 11 Angels, a quiet space built so the world remembers the women who were lost, not the man who stole them. And that's the end of the story. Every time I go through this case, I'm reminded how something this dark managed to stay hidden for so long. Tell me what part shocked you the most, because honestly, each time I revisit it, a different detail hits harder. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.
Subscribe and walk deeper in the dark.